Hey brothers and sisters, Matt Hatton here. So we're on the second part of a three-part series, if you will, on the costume chamber and the different heroes and costumes that you can pull out of this event. So the first part focused on the rare heroes, and for this video we're going to be focusing specifically on the 4-star epic costumes that are available from the chamber this week. This will be the October 2020 costume chamber version, and then I think next month we should have some additional costumes available, hopefully, that we can choose from. But let's get into it on what's available as of today. There are 12 epic hero costumes. The upgrade and downgrade process that I'm going to go through as far as offering my opinion on which costumes or bases you should use is going to be based on 3 main categories. The special skill changes, which is important, the hero class change, which is important, and then the base stats change is not as important, but it's still worth taking into consideration when we look at some of these base heroes versus their costumes. And then for the epic hero summon chance, you have about a 26.5% chance in the costume portal to summon these, so that's actually very good, a heck of a lot better than what we saw with the 4-star ninjas. So happy about that. I haven't seen a 4-star yet. If you want to check my 3-star rare video, you can see what I got out of the 10 summon at the end of that video, but I'll give you a little teaser. It wasn't great. But for the heroes, let's just get into it. For Bold Tusk, he's going to be our fighter that's moving over to a monk. He's gaining 4 attack and 13 health, and he's losing 10 defense. He's gaining 10% health for all allies, but he's losing an 18% attack for all allies for 4 turns. So with Bold Tusk, he's losing his chance to revive as a fighter, and he's getting a chance to resist status ailments as a monk. He's healing for more, but he's providing less of an attack up for allies. So I'm going to say recommend use the base hero for Bold Tusk and not the costume, mainly for the reason that Bold Tusk really benefits in a defense team or an attack team with that fighter class where he can revive himself. And the monk, just doesn't, it takes too much away and doesn't add enough. For Lizu, she's going from a monk to a rogue. She's gaining 14 attack and 8 defense, but she's losing 18 health. She's gaining 30% damage to all enemies, but she's losing minus 10% mana reduction for all enemies. So with Lizu, she's losing her chance to resist status ailments, and she's gaining a chance to dodge direct damage from an offensive special skill. So that's pretty good as far as her going from a monk to a rogue. Her reduced mana removal, though, from the enemy is too much of a downgrade in my opinion. A lot of people don't mind the Lizu costume, but for me, I definitely prefer the base. So I'm going to recommend using the base version and staying away from the costume version. For Kashrek, he's going from a wizard to a sorcerer. He's losing 10 attack, but he's gaining 10 defense, and he's losing 44 health. He's losing his 45% health for the caster and nearby allies, and he's also losing 30% of his fire defense for the caster and nearby allies, but he's getting a boosted health of himself and nearby allies of 450, and then if that health exceeds max HP, it's added as a temp HP up to 100% of the max HP. So Kashrek is losing his chance to deal that added 15% extra damage for each active buff the enemies have, which for Kashrek's not really a problem because he's not really going to be one of your key attackers. But he's gaining a chance to drop the mana generation of the enemy by 50% for 2 turns after dealing any normal damage. So this is really great for Kashrek. I definitely recommend using the Kashrek costume over the base version, and I think you're going to be really happy with him as a tank. For Little John, he's going from a barbarian to a ranger. He's losing 22 attack, but he's gaining 27 defense. He's no change at health. He's losing his 64% mana generation reduction from all enemies for 3 turns, and in its place, he's getting a 30 to 70% chance of dodging special attacks that do damage. And each dodge gives moderate amount of mana to the target effect, which lasts 4 turns. Little John is losing his chance to apply his bleed dot from his barbarian class, and he's gaining the ability to bypass defensive buffs and counterattacks through the Ranger class. But the loss of lowering his mana generation by 64% off the enemies, or all enemies I should say, is just not worth trading for the dodge. So I'm going to say use the base hero version of Little John and take advantage of the costume bonus, and stay away from the actual costume version of Little John. For Skittle Skull, he's going from a sorcerer to a cleric. He's gaining 14 attack, but he's losing 4 defense and 30 health. He's also losing 10% damage to all enemies. In its place, he's gaining a 5% attack down for all enemies for 6 turns. But he's losing his chance to drop mana generation of the enemy by minus 50% for 4 turns. And in its place, he's gaining the chance to resist any negative mana effects or special skill prevention. But with his slow speed, Skittle Skull can actually benefit from mana and special protection. So I'm going to recommend using the Skittle Skull costume over the base version. For Cademon, he's going from a druid to a fighter. He's gaining 4 attack and losing 4 defense and 4 health. He's losing his dispel buffs from all enemies, but he's gaining a cleanse status ailments from all allies. Cademon is losing his summon thorn minion, or his chance to summon a thorn minion, but he's gaining a chance to revive from the fighter class. If you have another hero that can debuff enemies, I would actually recommend using Cademon in the costume version over the base version. For Melendor, he's going from a druid to a wizard. He's losing 51 attack, but he's gaining 40 defense and 51 health. He's losing his 42% health for all allies, but he's gaining an all allies regeneration of 609 HP over 3 turns. And he's also gaining a very powerful 46% defense up for all allies for 3 turns. With Melendor moving away from the druid, he's losing his chance to summon the thorn minion, but he's gaining a chance to drop mana generation of the enemy by 50% for 2 turns after dealing any normal damage. And he's also gaining defensive down for all enemies. So I really love his costume. Definitely recommend costume Melendor over the base version, 10 out of 10. Sonya is moving from a paladin to a druid. She's gaining 9 attack but losing 5 defense and 9 health. She's losing her dispel buffs from all enemies, and she's gaining a cleansing status or cleanse status ailments for all allies. She's losing her chance for plus 25% defense for 2 turns after receiving damage, and she's gaining a chance to summon a thorn minion in its place. For a tanky hero like Sonya, paladin is really the best. So I'm going to say use the base version of Sonya and stay away from the costume version. And this is actually great to pair her with the costume version of Cademon, because now she's taking care of the dispel buffs off the enemy team, and Cademon can take advantage of his fighter class. For Borle, he's moving from a cleric to a paladin. He's losing 22 attack, but he's gaining 20 defense and 21 health. He's losing 85% total counterattack for all allies for 1 turn, but in its place, he's gaining 60% counterattack for his wing heroes. He's losing his chance to resist the negative mana effects and special use prevention from the cleric side, but in its place, he's gaining the chance to get 25% defense for 2 turns after receiving damage. And his counterattack decreases, but now applies to all allies for 1 less turn. So I used to be in favor of the base version of Borle, but now when I really look at the costume version, he really is becoming a true tank with the paladin class. And so I think the counterattack, even though you're losing some counterattack damage that's going back, the fact that he's covering the entire team and not leaving the wings exposed is more in the essence of a true purpose of a tank. So I say I'm now recommending using the costume version of Borle over the base version. For Kirill, he's going from a wizard to a sorcerer. He's gaining 14 attack and 16 health, but he's losing 26 defense. He's losing his ability where all allies get minus 30%, or excuse me, he's losing the ability to put a 30% attack buff on all allies for 3 turns. And he's also losing the 30% defense that he would be putting on all allies for 3 turns. In its place, the costume is putting a negative 34% attack down on the enemy team for 3 turns, and the enemy team is also getting negative 34% defense for 3 turns. Kirill is losing his chance to deal an added 15% extra damage for each active buff the enemies have from the wizard side, but he's gaining a chance to drop the mana generation of the enemy by 50% for 2 turns after dealing any normal damage. And ally buffs convert to enemy debuffs for 3 turns. So I'm going to recommend using the costume version of Kirill and staying away from the base version. For Tubertus, he's going from a ranger to a paladin. He's losing 5 attack and 9 health, but he's gaining 11 defense. Overall, he's gaining he's losing 120% damage to the target and nearby allies, but he's gaining 175% damage to enemies not nearby, meaning he's now hitting all enemies with his damage. He's also applying a 34% defense to all enemies instead of just the enemies that were the target and nearby enemies. So Tubertus is losing his chance to bypass defensive buffs and counterattack, but he's gaining a chance to get plus 25% defense for 2 turns after receiving damage. His attacks decrease in damage but increase to all targets, and his defense down is now applying to all enemies instead of just 3 enemies potentially. But with the changes in the stats, I just really think Tubertus is better suited as a ranger. So I'm going to recommend using the base hero and staying away from the costume version of Tubertus. For Rygard, he's moving from a cleric to a ranger. He's gaining 9 attack and 4 defense, and he's losing 11 health. He's losing his 42% health for all allies, but he's gaining that 609 HP regeneration for all allies over 3 turns. He's also gaining all allies get plus 48% attack for 3 turns. And then Rygard is losing his chance to resist negative mana effects and special skill prevention, but in its place he's gaining a chance to bypass defensive buffs and counterattack, which for Rygard is not too useful because you're not really attacking with him. But he's also putting that significant attack up buff for all your allies, and his burst heal damage is changing to heal over 3 turns. So it's an easy recommendation on this one, but definitely use the costume version of Rygard because this is the case study for really good costumes. And the costume version of Rygard can help your 4-star epic teams, and it can even work on your 5-star legendary teams. So we're going to do a 10 pull. I don't think I'm going to do quite 10, but I'm going to see how many keys I have. But first, just a quick reminder, there are 2 other videos. There's the rare guide, which covers the 15 rare costumes, and then there's a legendary guide, which is going to cover the 14 current legendary costumes available. So let's go over to my base, and we'll see how many pulls we can do here. See if my luck is better than the last video. Alright, so it looks like I have 5 keys to summon. So we're just going to do 5 on this, and then we'll see if we can do some more on the legendary. Alright, so costume version of Lizu. I do have her already. Azure. Have her. I think I have all the 3-star costumes. Bane, he's good, but I have him. Alright, looks like we got one more. And I'll save the Ascendant chest for the legendary video as well. Okay, Carol. Good costume, but I have him. Alright, so thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you watched the rare costume video before this. If you didn't, go check it out, the rare guide. And then also the legendary guide is going to be available by the time you watch this as well. So if you're going to summon in the costume chamber, best of luck. I wish you many, many 5 stars and very few 3 stars if you don't need them. But good luck, and we hope to catch you on the next video.